Welcome to week 2, mobile APIs and frameworks. We're going to dive in here. I've got a PowerPoint. I'll share my screen. And, oh, I did not mean to stop my video there. Whoops, hit the wrong button. Okay, we'll share the screen. Awesome. And you guys can see it, I hope. Yes. Oh, lots of thumbs up in the in the chat. That's great. Okay, cool. Is the text big enough, or should I zoom in a little bit?
This is fine.
This is good? Okay. So we're going to cover a little bit about JSON. We're going to talk about JSON, what it is, viewing it, what are JSON objects, JavaScript, how to transfer a JSON object from your client to the server, because JSON is a huge part of using APIs and REST. It's how we communicate. Remember, we were talking about, I should do a little recap just so that we can kind of remind ourselves of what we covered in week 1. We were talking about what is an API. I'll close this a little bit. We talked about an intro to APIs, frameworks, and what REST is. We talked about how basically you have your system, you use an API in the middle, it goes to the database or the data source, it brings back the information in JSON. You can also use XML and CSV. We're going to use JSON. It just makes more sense to use JavaScript object notation with JavaScript if you're using that. And then we talked about third-party APIs like Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, Gmail. We talked about what REST is. We talked about representational state transfer and how you use the elements in HTTP requests to go with the REST APIs. So here's this image. That was a good example of, you have your website application. You send, now this is where JSON comes in, and we're going to talk about what JSON is. You send the JSON in like this step here in this arrow, stringify it, send it to the RESTful API, goes to the web server, makes the request to the database, comes back, it parses it back to JSON into your API, boom, to your web application, right? So we're going to talk about like that middle step of like what is happening there, what is the object, how do we understand them, how do we create them, how do we read them, how do we send them, right? So it's a pretty vital step. So yeah, we covered REST, we covered, create, read, update, delete, all those different types. So we're going to look at how to create those objects today and read them. What else? We talked about all the benefits of using APIs. How do they work, right? So we used that example of a kitchen and a waiter going between you and the chef for the kitchen, making those orders. And then I think we just looked at Postman basically, and we made some requests and we brought back some actual JSON. So we're just going to dive a little bit deeper into some of that stuff today. Cool. So JSON stands for JavaScript Object Notation. It's a syntax for storing and exchanging data, and it's all text. So it's written in JavaScript Object Notation. The reason it has to be all text is because that's the only type of data that can be exchanged between the browser and your server. So your web app is running, and you want to make a call to the API. That's the only type of that. It's like I can't transfer an image. I can make a request for a particular type of image in the database, but I can't transfer the actual image file itself. So it's all text that gets converted. So we convert the JSON or the JavaScript object into JSON, and then we send the JSON to the server. We can also convert any JSON received from the server back into JavaScript objects, and we'll talk about that a little bit more, about how to convert them and what the methods are. So this way we work with the data as JavaScript objects with no complicated parsing or translations, right? So here's an example on the left-hand side, talking about like, business IDs, address hours when they're open, the categories. And then you can see when we pull that data from the server, this is like what the text information looks like. Then we use like an API to graph it, right? And actually represent it in an image or a graph or in this particular instance, a bar chart. And it will take that data or those numbers and represent them in a graph. Cool. So I want you guys to go to this web address. All right, I'm going to put it in the chat. Open it in another tab in your browser. I'll open it here. Okay. I'll put this link on Blackboard as well so that you guys can access it here. Okay, so this is a JSON Viewer. All right. Okay, so we go here. It should look something like this. It's just somewhere where you can put in a JSON variable. And then I'm going to give you guys this as well. Okay, so I'll put it on Blackboard, build content item, in JSON object, paste the text in there. Oh, keep the formatting. There it is. It's just a guy named John Smith. He's age 32. He's got his address, his state, his phone numbers. So just copy this text from Blackboard, right? You go in here, paste it, right? And then just hit the viewer tab in the top left here. And we're going to see, what is JSON? What are we actually working with here? So my text, right? It's just text. That's all it is. Right? Has everyone got that working? Cool. Thumbs up by DC. Nice. Okay, so we can see here it's an object. I can close it like this. Now I can make a couple of them, right? If I go like this, an object is always wrapped in these curly braces like this. So I can make two more. Go into the view. Oops. Oh, I think I have to make like a comma after or something like this. There we go. All right, and should be able to see three. I'll change the name. I'm not sure. I'm not going to play around with that yet. I'll just cover one object and then I'll talk about what it is to make two. Okay, so we've got first name is John, last name Smith, gender man, age 32, and then address. You can see there's another object inside of this property, right? And inside of the address, you've got street address, city, state, and postal code. And these are all their values. Yeah, I probably need to put it in the square brackets. Well, that would be for an array. So yeah, if we wanted to make an array of objects, right? And then here he's got phone numbers, and phone numbers are in the square brackets, like what Nina's talking about. And then he's got two phone numbers. He's got his home and fax. So when we go to the viewer, we can actually expand the address, right? And the address object and see, what does the address object look like? And we can extend the phone numbers and then extend the first instance in the array. And this is the home number. And then we can extend the second object in the array. So each one is an object. You can see that because it's in the curly braces, right? If we wanted to make an array of people, right, we've got this object, okay? We want to put this like that. And then another square bracket down here, and then paste the second object, put a comma after it. Okay. And then we've got a JSON array of 0 and 1. This is exactly what Nina was saying, right? And then I can make my second person named after me. Okay. If I expand this one, John Smith. If I expand this one, Ben Van Aragon. Okay. And then same thing, you can see the array list of the phone numbers, address, and all of that good stuff. So that is a cool tool to use to view JSON. All right. It looks really similar to like if I open up Postman here and I load some of those queries we made, like that's exactly what it was bringing back. It was bringing back JSON, right? Okay, cool. So we've got that. Sending data, okay? So if you have data stored in a JavaScript object, you can convert the object into JSON and send it to the server. So basically, this is a JavaScript object, okay? It's stored in var. We called the var myObj, or for myObject, and then we made the actual object here. So name John, age 31, city New York, right? Then we did var myJSON. So we made a new variable. We did JSON, and we used the .stringify method, okay, to send the object or convert the object into JSON format, okay? And then what we can do is just, window.location, demo.json, PHP plus myJSON. So we add the object to the screen, okay? Receiving data, very similar. It's just a different method, okay? This is basically working the opposite way. This is now receiving the data converting it back into a JavaScript object. So you have your JSON, okay? It's in the object format, it's in the curly braces, and you have to have, this is very important, I'm going to annotate this, you have to have all your key value pairs double quotes. So you see here, here, if it's a string, double quotes. You can't use a single quote. You can't use no quotes for this unless it's a number. So you see here, the number has nothing around it. I kind of covered it, whoops. The number has nothing around it there, but when it's a string, it has to be double quotes. And the property name, so like age here, for example, has to have double quotes around it, same with city. Okay, so every time it's on the left side of the key value pair, it has to have double quotes. Okay, so they use the JSON.parse, and then you pass your JSON object, and this will put it into JavaScript, a JavaScript object. Now we can do document.getElement by ID. Say we have a div called demo, and we set the inner HTML to myObj.name, which would return what in this example? Anyone can answer this. What would this return? I wonder if I can put this in here. It'll let me do it in W3 schools though. What do you guys think it would return? What would I get back? Anybody? Any ideas? If I had this code running and I set the document get element by ID demo inner HTML to myObj.name, what is that going to give me? John. Perfect. Yep. So right here, you can see it gives us John. So if I change this to city, okay, just like Java or any object-oriented language, perfect. Thanks, Yashu. Thanks, DC. It's now going to return New York because I'm getting the city key value pair, right? And if I change the words in here, it's going to show up here because that's what's basically, yeah, New York. Awesome. Makes sense. I'm sure you guys know this. Just doing a review on what JSON is. That's great. Cool. Okay. So storing data. So if we want to store data, it has to be in a certain format. Whether we want to store it, regardless of where we choose to store it, sorry, it always will have to be in a legal format, and text is always one of those legal formats. So JSON also makes it possible to store JavaScript objects as text. So here we go. We've got my object again, name John, age 31, city New York, and we want to store it. So we have our JSON object. We stringify it into a JSON object, and we can use the local storage. Okay, this is an API that's like built into the browser. Same with like session storage and all that stuff. So we're talking about APIs, local storage dot set item test JSON. So you're giving it a name, and then you pass it your actual JSON, and then we can retrieve it back. Set the text variable to local storage dot get item test JSON. So that's the key value pair we want to get back. Obj.json.parse into text. And then we were going to get element by ID demo.inner HTML obj.name. Does that make sense? So we set our object to parse this text variable, and then we're going to get the name key value pair from it. Cool. I think everyone's following. So some syntax rules. As we're talking about this, I probably should have said these first. It's derived from JavaScript object notation syntax. So name value pairs are huge. You always have it separated by commas. So if we go here, we can see every single time there's a comma in between every key value pair. Those are my terrible arrows at drawing. Okay. Now the data also, any object has to be inside curly braces. So I already mentioned this before, but you have a curly brace here and you have a curly brace here. So that's what your object's going to be inside. Okay. Then you have name and the value. Oops. Okay. So name is age, value 31. Next, square brackets hold arrays. So we already talked about that. That was in the first example. All makes sense. All right, so name and value, always in double quotes. I already mentioned this. JavaScript names don't have to be in double quotes. JSON does, and you have to follow it by a colon, okay? So like name in double quotes, colon, John in double quotes. All right? If we were to evaluate a JSON and JavaScript, we can see the difference. JavaScript doesn't require double quotes around the name, but it does require double quotes around the value, whereas JSON requires double quotes around both. Values, so you have the name and the value on the right. JSON values have to be string, number, object, an array, or a Boolean. JavaScript, you can have functions, dates, and undefineds, but JSON, you can't do those. All right, or you have to use a method to get dates. JSON evaluating to JavaScript objects. Oh, we already talked about that one. Okay. Using JavaScript syntax. Okay, because JSON syntax is derived from JavaScript object notation, very little extra software is needed to work with JSON within JavaScript. So with JavaScript, you can create an object and assign data to it like this. So this is JavaScript creating an object, and you can just easily make this into a JSON object. You can also access a JavaScript object like this. So you do the person.name. So if it's inside an object called person, like this, var person, and you want to get the name, person.name will get you John. Or person square bracket and then the value or the key, which is name, and that will return John as well. Data can also be modified like this, so you can do person.name equals. That's the method I prefer. Or you can also do person square bracket name equals Gilbert, but this is just more typing, so I think it's a lot easier to do the ones on the left. Okay. JavaScript arrays. We'll talk about arrays a little bit later. The parse method, okay? So common use of JSON is to exchange data to or from a web server, right? Because we have to send it as text when we're working with APIs. So when receiving data from a web server, it's always going to be a string, and we use the JSON parse method to make it a JavaScript object, okay? So we're receiving text from a web server. This is the text we receive right here in orange. And we use the JSON.parse object to convert it into a JavaScript object, right? And basically what's going to happen here is it's going to make a var in JavaScript. We have this paragraph with an ID of demo. In our script tag, we do document.getElement by ID demo, so it's going to get that paragraph because that's the ID. .inner HTML, set the inner HTML to obj.name. Obj is our var from before that we parsed from JSON into JavaScript. .name is the key value pair, and it's going to return John. Then we're concatenating a comma and then getting obj.age, which is going to return the value for the name pair of age, which is 30. It's going to return John, comma 30. Does that make sense? So that's using parse to parse JSON and exchange it from the server to your client. Yes. Thank you, Nina. Awesome. Okay. Now, Stringify, like I said, works the opposite way. This is sending data to the web server. It has to be in a string. Convert the JavaScript object into a string with JSON Stringify. So same thing, we're doing it back. We just use JSON.Stringify, pass your object, your JavaScript object. Boom. It is now my JSON, and that is a JSON object. Or sorry, that is a string from a JSON object. Okay. So that's the string that would be passed to the server. Here's just a list of built-in APIs. So like I talked about local storage, there's also geolocation, audio, video. So we talked about like third-party APIs, and then there's also built-in APIs, so which are like built into like your browser, like Chrome, or Firefox, Safari, whatever you like to use for your browser. They come with a list of built-in APIs, and you can look it up depending on what browser you like. So the geolocation API, this is another W3 Schools tutorial. You can try it. It's kind of cool. Go like this. So basically, this is built into the browser. They've got a function called getLocation, and then we use the geolocation API. They check if, they check if it's supported by the browser or not. So it'll get the position and then show the position. show position function is getting called here. It's passing the position object, and then it'll take the latitude, get position.coordinates.latitude from that object, and then the longitude as well. If it's not supported by the browser, it'll just say that. So there you go, boom, there's our latitude and longitude, which is awesome, right? So you can try that. That's just basically a built-in navigator.geolocation. That's a built-in API into the browser. Same thing with the storage API. This one's actually pretty cool. So you can store data with no expiry date with the local storage API, or you can use the session storage API, and that stores data for one session. And when you close the browser tab, you lose the data. So if we're wanting to make a web app for our budgets and stuff, maybe that's fine, because when we make the web app and we call and whatever, all that data is stored during that session. But then when we come back later, we might want to get something else. Usually with stuff like sensitive data, you want it to expire at the end of the session, so that's not stored there for the next person. But if you do want to do, like, I don't know, that car share, and you want data that doesn't ever expire, so like your user account or something like that, you store it in the local storage. Things in the local storage can cause a bit of like interference with like the way that they store it. It can cause interference because it's on like the main thread, and there's some buffer issues, but you can store like a ton of information on both of these objects anyways. So with web storage, web applications can store data locally on the browser. I think Chrome can store up to 80% of your RAM's value, or they might have changed it to 40%. But remember, there used to be like those memory leaks with Chrome. So you can store a ton of information in the browser based on the amount of RAM you have on your computer. So like I have 24 gigs, so I could store like 18 gigs of RAM, 18 gigs of local storage in my browser from like a web app, right? Pretty crazy. Before that, you had to store them in cookies in every server request. Yeah, you when you store it locally, it doesn't affect performance, which is nice. Unlike cookies, storage limit is far larger, and information is never transferred to the server. Web storage is per origin, per domain and protocol. All pages from one origin can store and access the same data. Cool. So we're going to play around with an API a little bit. It's called Where the ISS At. So the ISS is the International Space Station. So we're going to build a little web app here that uses an API, and we're going to actually map it too. So we're going to use some tiling. So I want you guys to check out this this link here. I'm going to put it in Blackboard as well. Oh, the other thing. Oh yeah, I guess I'll cover that still. I'll put this in weekly learning. Week 2, build content, web link, where the ISS at, submit. Okay, now I want you guys to check out this link. If we take a look at it, we can see we've got a map. We zoom out a little bit. We've got the ISS represented here by the ISS image, and it's updating, it's moving every little bit based on its latitude and longitude. Okay, so these are just coordinates based on a Mercator projection of the map of our world. We've got a lot of things. We've got altitude, velocity, the time, and whether or not it's in daylight or not, right? So first thing we do when we check out an API, we want to find the documentation on it, right? So we can do that here, right at the very bottom. I'll just annotate, and you can click and read a bit about the documentation. Okay, so I'll click API. So this is a REST API. We see that. Okay, so we've talked about REST. We know what that is. It's using the REST conventions. Okay, we can get current, past, or future position of the ISS. We can get time zone information and a set of coordinates. Authentication. Currently, there's no authentication, so that's good to know, because remember with Postman, we actually had to do some authentication with some of the requests we made and get a token or an authentication token for some of the requests. So this is nice. It's open. Some endpoints will likely allow for authentication in the future, but please Note the rate limits below. Okay, rate limits. What is rate limiting? This is important to know. Requests are limited to roughly 1 per second. So we know we're not going to be making, like, we don't have to think about this too much. We're not going to be making more than 1 request per second, but we can keep track of this by looking at the headers that are returned in each response. Cool. Responses. So some notes on responses from the API. Json format. That's what we were just talking about, right? Some endpoints will support other formats, but JSON is the main format. So that's what we were talking about. If you want to easily visualize JSON, you can use the parameter indent equals 4 to indent responses. I have something else that we're going to use to do that. All successful responses will have a 200 response code. Cool. Support endpoints. Okay, so this is the good stuff. Endpoints. So we have an endpoint called satellites. So we can see here HTTPS where the ISS at /version1/satellites will respond something like this. So let's put it in here. Now I just want to turn this off. I'm just going to disable extensions. I have a Chrome extension on right now that allows me to view JSON in a really nice way, but I want to just disable it for right now. Second, manage extensions. Okay, I'm just going to turn it off for a sec. Okay. So if I go to this, okay, you should see something like that. Okay. And it returns name ISS ID 25544. Now, if we go back to the endpoints, we can see that satellites slash and then an ID, which is, oh, look at that, ID, key value pair 25544 will return more information about the satellite. Okay. So we just go satellites slash 25544, enter, and we get this. Now that's pretty ugly. If you want to view this in a better way, you go to Chrome, you type in Json Formatter extension, okay? I have Json Formatter extension, makes JSON easy to read, open source. Turn that on, refresh this, and all it does, you can see right here, boom, I can view my JSON. It highlights it in syntax. I can hit the raw button here, and then I can also see the parsed version here, okay? Install that is really helpful. So if you have JSON that you're viewing, you can look at it and understand it a lot easier. So look at, what do we have? We have latitude, we have longitude. If we refresh the page, we can see it's just slightly changing each time because the ISS is moving. So we're going to be using this API, and we're going to be calling on some of these things, and we're going to plot where the ISS is on a map using this API. Okay, so you can install that extension. We can check out this. We can check out some of the other endpoints here. So you can get some positions, get satellites slash TLS. So TLE data, right? So I don't know what TLE data is. That's probably some satellite thing. We can get coordinates, so lat long. Cool. All right. So there we go. We read the documentation. We understand it. We understand the endpoints. We understand this endpoint. We get the JSON formatter, and then we can view it in a nicer way. All right. So I'm going to go to Visual Studio Code, File, select a language. I'm going to make an HTML file, and I'm going to save it in week 2 mobile APIs and frameworks. Save as index.html. And please follow along with me, okay? Save. All right, is everyone following along with me? Sort of, maybe, no? DC is following along, that's good to know. You guys understand what we're going to do? So instead of just using Postman, like what we can do, check this out. Okay, boom, I can go to Postman, I can type in where the ISS at, satellites 25544, send it, sends the request, returns this back. Same thing, pretty raw, right? Cool. So there's our information, right? Same thing I showed you guys last week with Lord of the Rings, favorite Pokemon, and all of that good stuff. All right. So what are we going to do now? Well, I'm going to open up my index page. This is a blank page right now. And we are going to follow through what I've got. Okay. So we're going to type this code into our HTML page. So we're going to just make a very basic in our index.html doc type HTML. HTML, whoops, got to close that. Okay, head, body, whoops. All right, we're gonna make a title. Title will be, where is the ISS? Okay, save. What do we get when we refresh? We get nothing. What else do I need? I also need my viewport, and that's it for now. I'm just gonna copy the viewport tag. Okay, and then in the body, we're gonna make a script tag. And in the script tag, we're gonna put our JavaScript, okay? If I save this, we've got nothing in there now. I'm gonna type this out in Visual Studio Code. I'm just gonna make it a bit smaller so I can type at the same time with what I've got on the screen. Okay, so we're gonna make a variable const called ISS API URL. Okay, so we're just making the URL of what we want to request. Whoops. And that URL I just put into Postman here returns this JSON data, right? So I'll put that in the chat. You guys can have it. There you go. Okay, so that's saving it as a constant in JavaScript. Next, we want to make a function, okay, an asynchronous function called getISS. And basically, it's going to use the fetch method that will get the data or get the JSON at the URL we feed it, okay? So we make a response equals await fetch, and then we pass it the URL. So I can just do this, right? I can just put the URL in there, or I can use the constant that I just made, ISS API. I can't put it in a string though. ISS API URL, right? And this is just going to get fed into there like that, right? Okay. Const data equals await response dot JSON. So we're going to save it into a constant called data, and then we're just going to do console.log of what data is, okay? So data is basically, once it responds, it's going to get the JSON from this URL. We know what the JSON's already going to be. We know it's going to be this, okay? And then we're going to console.log, and hopefully you see something like this. Did anyone get that already? Has anyone run it? Did anyone get the object in their console? This is the point where I would walk around the classroom, but you guys just have to be honest with me and tell me whether or not you got it working or not. So I'll save this, go here, refresh the page. You should see nothing. I hit F12, and in my console, oops, in my console, it should be there. Now, async get ISS, ISS URL, data, and this. Oh, we got Nina gave me a thumbs up. Okay. Navigated to. Why does this always happen with my thing? This never works when I want it to work. Constant response which fetch URL. What did I do wrong? I didn't end that. There we go. No, I must be missing something. Look at my code. Need to call get ISS. Oh, yes, thank you. Okay, after console.log, obviously, after our function, we actually want to call our function. Oh, the funny things you do, programming. Okay. Now we actually have to call the method. There it is. Look at that. Boom. Thank you, Nina. Okay. So there's our code. Awesome. Well, hey, that helps me know that you're following along if you're catching my mistakes. That's great. Okay, so now we actually want to make some of this stuff show up on the screen. So how do we do that? Does anyone have an idea? How do I make, if I want to display a paragraph saying my longitude is and my latitude is, how do I do that? Any ideas? What do you guys think? You use your mics, you can talk in chat. Feel free to interrupt me. How would you do it? Document.getElement. Okay, nice, Daria. And you would, okay. So do you know that based on the PowerPoint that I showed you, or are you just already experienced with JSON so you know how to do this?
I know a little bit of that, so
Sorry, say that again.
I know a little bit of that because I have worked previously. So yeah.
Perfect. Okay, cool. Yep, you got it. So we're going to use document.getElement by ID, and we're going to actually, show some of the data here. So this is what I want to do. So basically, where is the ISS? Okay, so we're going to add this code here. I'm going to, above my script tag, I'm going to add a heading. Where is the ISS? Okay. And then we're going to add a couple paragraph tags. And then in it, the latitude is, and then span ID equals lat. Okay, so we give it a name, we give it an ID that we can reference it by later. Okay, and then longitude is span ID. This one we'll call long, that makes sense. And then these lat and long is what we're going to do document.getElement by ID, and then get lat and get long. Okay, so right here, whoops, right here, we don't have to log the data anymore. I mean, we can, but hopefully we'll see it on our screen before we have to check our console. So document.getElement by ID. We pass the ID value that we want to get. So lat in this example, dot text content, and set it equal to data dot, it's right there, so I'm not going to ask you guys, latitude, right? Now there's multiple ways we can do this. We can do data.latitude, or we can make an object out of it and deconstruct our JSON into variables and then pass those variables, right? I can also just make a variable, here, not const, var latitude equal to data.latitude, right? Oh, 1 second. Let me just pause here. So you guys write this code on the screen. I'll be right back. Just 1 second. How do I do this? All right. Sorry, guys. I am back. Okay. Did everyone get that written down? Is that working? You did. Awesome. Okay. Did it show on your screen? Yes. Nice. Okay. Sweet. Okay. So var latitude. I was just showing you an example of what I can do. I'm just going to get it like this right now. I'm going to copy the whole line and then do the same thing, but get it for long, right? And longitude, 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 spell it right. That would help. Okay. And then when we console.log, we want to console.log data.latitude, right? And then same thing, we want to log the specific keyword of what we are looking for, right? So now what's going to happen is we're going to set the text content to whatever data.latitude is inside of this span. Okay, so if I save it, I go back, there it is. And there's our latitude and longitude. Do you see that? Cool. So it's working. Nice. Okay. Is this new to anyone, or is this all stuff you guys know?
It's not new for me, but like I have done like 2 years back, so it's good refresher.
Okay, sweet. Okay, cool. It's familiar, but not much experience with JavaScript. Okay, awesome. That's sweet. No worries. Okay, so what I wanted to challenge you guys to do, what we did with Postman is we got, if you remember, our Lord of the Rings movies, and we had to use that authorization bearer token, and this was my access token. And then when I actually ran, get all movies, and I ran that response, it sends the access token. It gets the Lord of the Rings series, it gets the Hobbit series, it gets all these movies. I wanted you guys to try and get some of the either Lord of the Rings or the Pokemon. Remember we did the the Pokemon. We got Squirtle right here, and we got all the abilities. If you could get some of that running, right? So you just have to, all you have to do, take this, make a new URL, and then get some of that data and see if you can get that working, and experiment around with it so that it is showing on your screen here. Like you have like Pokemon name, Pokemon ability, Pokemon whatever, right? Does that make sense? So try experimenting for that with that for a little bit. Or for the Lord of the Rings one, what you would do is you would get your access bearer token, and then you would save that in a variable or constant at the top, and then you would make the request with the token as part of the request, right? Sending that in the header. And it's a little bit different because you're not just adding it like here, how we did in Postman. We'll cover how to do it in HTML as well. Cool, so we've got our code, we've got that working. So I'm going to talk a little bit about, okay, so now that we have this position, -4 and 77, we can actually map it out. And I don't know how valuable this is. I'm kind of thinking if we should cover it or not, because it's using the Leaflet.js API. You add the CSS file and you add their JavaScript file after the CSS. And basically, after adding a couple lines of code and adding a tile element for your map, what it's going to allow us to do, we have to create some access tokens, is it's going to allow us to actually plot a map, an open source map. It's just like using Google API's mapping program, and then put the pin or like a marker where that latitude and longitude is for the ISS space station. Make sense? Yeah. Okay, cool. So I'm going to upload this. I want you guys, okay? I don't have an assignment 1 for this class yet, but what I want you guys to do is get this working. I'm going to upload the PowerPoint, as well as if you go to leaflet.js, okay? leafletjs.com and click on Quick Start Guide right here. And you follow the Quick Start Guide. Okay, so here's your CSS file. Here's your script file. You make a map. You give an ID to a div called map ID. You give it a height, and then you have to initialize the map and give it a tile, right? So here we give it a tile layer. You have to create or request an access token from Mapbox. So I go to my Mapbox account. I already logged in. I have my access tokens right here. Okay, it's free to create. You create your access token, you put it here. All right, and then you're ready to actually start mapping. So if you follow along in the PowerPoint and you follow along on this quick start guide, you'll be able to actually get mapping working. I'm going to create a link here to leaflet.js. Quick start, submit, and I'm going to add the PowerPoint. And I want you guys to, this is a bit of like in-class work. I'll be available for questions and stuff. But I want you guys to try to run through it yourself and get it working. Show me it working or screenshot it working, and then I'm going to make a submission as well for that. Okay, does that make sense? So I want to upload a file. I want to upload this PowerPoint, lesson week 2. Point. Does that make sense, guys? Yeah, thumbs up, thumbs down. Yeah, you got it, Nina? Okay, cool. So in the PowerPoint, if you go to slide, what slide is Leaflet on? 28. Okay, that's where we are. Slide 28. I'm going to make a submission form for either, I want you to screenshot, basically you'll screenshot the code when it's finished working, like this. And then you'll screenshot, if I actually run, I have a version of it working here. It should look like this, okay? So this is where the ISS is right now, over the Indian Ocean, okay? And the latitude is -22 and 91, all right? And if I refresh this, it'll move just slightly, right? Because it's traveling at really fast, but super far away from the Earth. So it'll slightly move each time. You can replace this pin with a custom icon as well if you want. So screenshot your page here and screenshot your code and upload it to Blackboard right here. I'm going to make an assignment. We're going to call it leaflet.js API and mapping of the ISS. Okay. And do I have upload 2 screenshots of code and of map working website? All right. I'll give it a due date of a couple days, but this is kind of just like for in class. So actually, I'll make it tonight. Tonight, so we can do it in class together. All right. Day. Cool. All right, so all of the stuff you should need is there. Pretty straightforward. Follow this, follow the PowerPoint, get your access token, put it in, create the map on here, and then you can see it's actually moving slightly. Now it's a little bit to the right of the Indian Ocean, closer to Australia. Any questions?
I'm facing issue like I can only see the latitude while I'm trying to display the longitude. It's showing me error of null context. I checked twice, but I can't find any error in there. I don't know.
Sorry, so you can't see the latitude?
I can see the latitude, but I can't see the longitude
Okay.
in my.
Let's see. Maybe you should share your screen, or maybe there's like, did you have this semicolon after latitude?
Yeah, I checked
These are
that
spelled
twice.
correctly, long and long. If you share your screen, maybe I can help. get the latitude or the longitude working. Oh, perfect. Okay, let's see. Okay, so long text content data longitude span. Okay. And then what's happening when you run it? Okay. Text content. Something going uncaught in promise. Cannot set proper text content of null. So, data dot spell correctly. Let me see what mine is spelled like. Text content data dot longitude. Uncut and promise. So is the scroll up? I think the problem might be with your paragraph element. So break, you get editor span. That's not even showing the longitude is. Like that sentence you don't even have showing there. So you have your span, ID equals lat. Oh, I know what it is. Well, your span. So you don't have a closing tag on your span. So I know you're closing it in one, but do like an actual close tag. So right after lat there, instead of doing it all in one, yeah, and then do another span. Yeah, try that and do it on the second one as well. And see if that works. Let's see if that works. Here we go.
Thank you for it.
Perfect. Okay, cool. Yeah, so now see if you can get the API of Leaflet Js working. And I'll kind of just, I'll go through it, but I want you guys to do it on your own kind of thing here. So I'll talk about it, but I'm not actually going to do the coding with you guys. So Leaflet JS, quick start. You're going to get this on their website. You're going to get the CSS file, and you're going to get the script file, and you're going to place them both in the head. All right. It'll look something like this, right? And you put this script file after the style sheet so that any reference to things on the style sheet in the scripts runs. So it'll look like this. I'm going to give you guys 10 minutes if you want to take a break, or if you want to work on this on your own and get it finished just like that. It should only take 10-15 minutes. But I'm going to we'll come back at 4:15, so 10-minute break. And you guys have a chance to, follow through the PowerPoint, work on this, add the map element to the div, and just keep on going, and we'll pick up, and I'll help you guys out as you go. Cool? So I'll just pause the recording here. All right, hey guys, I'm back. Can you guys hear me, see me? Yes, cool. All right. So does anyone have any questions? I just started the recording again. Have you guys gotten the maps working? Have you guys plotted anything? Oops. There we go. Just trying to share my screen. Cool. How's it going? Where are you guys at? What kind of code do you guys get working? Anybody? You're on it. Okay. What does that mean, DC? Is it you have the map working, but it's not centering at the marker. Oh, yeah, that's fine. I actually just default set mine to be, let's see if I actually have it. I set the default of mine, Nina, to be at zoom level 1, so it's really far out, so you can't tell that it's not centered or not. And it's literally just these are the Latin longs like over Toronto. But don't worry about centering it to that. I mean, you can just like get the lats and then like here you set it to 0, 0. But you could get the lat longitude right away and then set it to center if you really wanted to. DC, you said you're on it. So how does that work?
Yeah, I just got the map and I'm trying to put a marker on it.
Cool. Okay, sweet. And Nina, you have the marker working? Already on it? So you guys got the access token, and Nina, Nina, are you at this step here where you do marker.set lat long? Setting it to zoom on worked. Cool, you can see the marker now. Okay, awesome. Nice. Okay, awesome, cool. And Yashu, how are you doing? So look, if I refresh this now, it's all the way over New Zealand. Check that out. Oh, it's moving fast. That's great, Nina. Awesome. Yeah, so just take a screenshot. Can you teach later how to have it at a closer zoom and center it to the marker? So okay, we can try to do that right now. I'll just fool around with it. So if we want to have it at a closer zoom, like let's say like 5, okay? Refresh, and it's going by default to here. I want it to go to just like where I'm setting the marker, like data.latitude and data.longitude. I get this here. When I set my view, I set it like this. I'm going to set my view. I'm going to do the same thing right after I get those marker settings. Right? So this is going to be what sets the map view to the lat and long of the ISS. And then instead of 43, I'm just going to do data.latitude, sorry, and data.longitude, right? And that should work. Oh, no. Let's see. So closer zoom 5. Let's try this. Okay. Oh, I see. Then we want to retile. Max zoom 18, tile size 512, add to map, function.getCSS. Depends on when we call it, right? So I want to do lmap.setView, I believe. And if I comment this out, it doesn't work. Okay, because you need to initialize it. It's a great question. I thought it would be just as simple as setting the view like this and passing along. I wonder if I make, okay, let's do this. Let's make a var called map.lat and set it equal to data.latitude. And then let's make a var called map.long and set that equal to data.longitude. And then we'll call get ISS forehand. So that way data can actually be referenced. And then in here, we'll set this to map.lat. And we'll set this to map.long. See if that works. And then I'll just comment that out. That doesn't work either. I wonder if I console log these at this point in time. getting an empty map. Yeah, I'm getting the same thing. Don't worry. I'm just kind of fooling around with it because I don't actually know exactly. Let's see here. Map lat. We want to just long. I want to console log those two numbers. Okay. Hit F12. Reference data is not defined. Okay. Cannot access ISS before initialization. Right. So I need to make this available up here. Cannot access ISS before initialization, right? So we want to initialize the function before we call it. So we'll do that here. Then we'll call it. Then we'll set the lat long. Data is not defined still. Cannot access marker before initialization. So where's marker? Okay, because we set the marker inside of this function. Okay. So basically, if we comment out the marker, data is not defined. Data is not defined. Response.json. Why is that? Is it this? Because it is putting it here. Map lat is not defined. Yeah, that's fine. So data. Oh, I see. It's because it's referenced inside of here. Whereas if I make it a constant outside available to us, then I can reference it. So let's make outside of that function const data underscore global equal to, right now it'll just be nothing. Like we'll just make it. And then down here, I'll set data underscore global equal to data, right? And then I'm going to use data global. I get my latitude, longitude, and maybe that'll work. Oh, sheesh. I'm literally just taking some guesses here. Missing initialization, const declaration. Oh, okay. Data global equal to, let's just make it empty. All right, undefined, undefined. That long object. Yeah. I'm gonna make it equal to something null. But you need to set it to the right property type. How's it going, DC? Did you get yours working? What are you, Nina? Yours is finished, right? So Nina, if you want to take a screenshot of that and upload it onto Blackboard, totally do that, and like you guys are free to go once you guys get this working. I'm just trying to fool around and get this this working with centering on the div and centering on the marker right away. So oh. What if we just get rid of this function altogether? You got the set view with map lat and map long to work, but I also did all the map initialization stuff within the get ISS function. Oh, I see. So did you get it to center over top of it? Because I'm kind of just making this up. Yeah. Okay, you did. Oh, you got it as well. Okay, so you just put the map initialization stuff inside there. Yeah, that makes sense. Let's try that. So I'll just get rid of this constant variable. We'll do some tiling in here, my map marker. put all that inside underneath. Let's see what you guys did. Cool. And then call the function afterwards. Okay. You got it to work as well, DC. Nice. Yeah, upload your screenshots, guys. That'd be awesome. And then, okay, so then did you just do this? All at once. Get rid of that. Right. Basic function. It gets it. We'll delete that. Marker settings. Marker set mat long. Set view data.latitude, data.longitude. Does that work? Yes. And then we'll set my marker. I think I got rid of my set marker, marker.setLatLong. I had that somewhere right here. After it's initialized, we'll do that. Okay, let's see if that works. My map is not defined. Tell me how you did it, Nina, because I have messed up my stuff everywhere now. This is funny. I've erased some lines of code that I think I need. Oh, there you go. So you've got it all in one. Okay. This is where we work together. This is great. Okay. Oh, you did the same thing, Yashu? Okay, so that's your script, and that goes until the max zoom. Okay. Right up to here. Okay, let's see what that is. The top of your script tag. Okay, so you've got your API URL. You're getting the ISS. We fetch it. We log our data. Sweet. We set it to a variable. We set the spans to that variable. Them again. You set the view, map lat, map long. There you go. Just so work now. Aha. Now I just need to add the marker. Do you have the marker added? Oh. Oh, sheesh. Which part is this? Okay, from ID. Probably didn't let you include. All right, let's try that. ID, cost marker, L marker 00, set lap long. Yeah, that makes sense. Do it all in one. Done. And you're zoomed in. Cool. And if we don't want to be as zoomed in, or if we want to be a little bit more zoomed out. Yeah. Well, if I'm on desktop now, I can be zoomed into like 5 or something. Cool. Put me on the spot there. Look at that. Okay, so cool. It's over the Cook Islands. Great question. It didn't let you paste the whole thing, no worries. So that was a good test. I failed because I did not get it working. But if you guys do have it working, yeah, feel free to screenshot your code. Screenshot this. You put me on the spot there, and you caught me because I messed it up with where I put my code. But hey, that's where we work together. That's great. Cool. So yeah, we will look at Firebase and creating websites that send JSON to Firebase and saving data. No worries. No, that's good. I like those questions where I don't know exactly everything to do there. It shows all the different ways you can kind of do things, and you know, I'm not going to be the best at everything, and that's where we can help each other. So that's great. So perfect. We're going to look at Firebase next week. This was today. This was using APIs and then actually putting them onto your website. Last week we just used APIs in Postman. So if you wanted to try and use Postman to get some of that information onto your website too, something, and maybe I'll make assignment 1 this weekend for you guys for this class, will be to make a website like this, but using the Lord of the Rings API, and then having a subset of images that you show based on the book that you click, right? So like if it's Lord of the Rings, you load the Lord of the Rings book image cover, and then if it's The Hobbit, you load the image, uh, the Hobbit image. Kind of like this, right? This one we used mapping, so it's a little bit more complicated, but it's always good to know how to use different map APIs. Perfect. Any other questions for you guys before we shut this off? So everyone's got it working, I believe, right? Cool, cool. Yes, thumbs up. If you got it working, you can upload your screenshots, 2 screenshots really quick, code, and then this image. Be awesome. Sweet. Awesome. Good work, DC. Got your access tokens. That's great. Cool. All right. Well, I'm going to stop the recording there.